In 1991, founder of the Conservative Caucus and essential figure to the Second New Right, Howard Phillips, alongside a few others, founded a new paleoconservative political party to combat the GOP's neoconservative philosophy, called the U.S. Taxpayers Party. I'll make a video about both ideologies and their differences, but all you need to know at the moment is the biggest divide between paleocons and neocons are non-interventionist and protectionist in their trade policy, whereas neocons are super interventionist and for free trade. Anywho, the 1992 election quickly came around the corner, so they had a nomination convention, with Phillips getting 264 votes. 4 votes went to Bo Gritz, who would later run for David Duke's Populist Party later that year, and 1 vote went to former Republican governor of Arizona, Evan Meacham. Bishop Albion W. Knight Jr. was selected to be his running mate. Phillips was on the ballot in 21 states and managed to attain 0.04% of the popular vote, with nothing major happening in this race. Later in the 1996 election, Phillips ran against politician Charles E. Collins and FBI agent Ted Gunderson. It was speculated that Pat Buchanan would run if the Republican candidate Bob Dole chose a pro-choice running mate, and in response, Dole chose pro-life Jack Kemp. Phillips won, choosing attorney Herbert Titus as his running mate. They were on the ballot in 38 states and managed to attain 0.19% of the popular vote. Later in the controversial election of 2000, Phillips and Titus both ran for the officially rebranded Constitution Party ticket. Phillips, of course, won the nomination and selected journalist Joseph Sobran as his running mate. However, due to journalistic duties, he left the ticket, and Phillips chose surgeon and Constitution senatorial candidate in 1998, Curtis Fraser, as his replacement on the ticket. The Phillips-Fraser ticket was on the ballot in 41 states and got 0.09% of the popular vote. In the 2004 campaign, Howard Phillips chose not to run for a 4th time, and the Constitution Party unanimously elected Maryland lawyer and founder of the paleoconservative think tank Institute on the Constitution, Michael Perutuka, for president, and radio host and former pastor of the Crossroad Baptist Church, Chuck Baldwin, as his running mate. Their campaign theme was God, Family, and Republic, and emphasized the Bible, the traditional family, and the need for the constitutionally limited government. They also received prominent endorsements from other paleoconservative parties such as the American First Party and the Alaskan Independence Party, a neo-Confederate organization called the League of the South, and radio host Alex Jones. And by the end of the election, they managed to get on the ballot in 34 states and 0.12% of the popular vote. 2008 was an election centered around change. Candidates from all directions wanted to bring change to their side of the political spectrum, and some of them even meant it. The Constitution Party was no different and had a higher amount of candidates, probably due to the rise of the right libertarian philosophy of Ron Paul. Their candidates were former U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Max Reesk, Susan Ducey, a stay-at-home mom and registered nurse from Kansas, businessman and minor Libertarian Party candidate Daniel Imperatio, former Republican candidate in 2000 and 2008, and eventual candidate for the American Independent Party, Alan Keyes, and former Constitution Party vice presidential candidate Chuck Baldwin. Baldwin managed to win the most votes, and founding member of the Constitution Party, former soldier and attorney Darrell Castle won the nomination to be his running mate. Baldwin emphasized throughout the campaign that he was ideologically closest to Ron Paul, so much so that after Paul gave a seal approval to Bob Barr, Ralph Nader, Cynthia McKinney, as well as Baldwin, and some controversy involving the Libertarian Party, link in the description, Paul chose to endorse Baldwin over Barr in the general election. Baldwin was even invited to 2 third-party debates that were aired on C-SPAN 2, with Baldwin actually expressing agreement with left-wing candidate Ralph Nader on a lot of the issues. Baldwin was on the ballot in 37 states and received 0.15% of the popular vote. Meanwhile, in Montana, the Constitution Party's state affiliate chose to not endorse Baldwin, but rather endorse Ron Paul for president and Michael Perutuka for VP. Despite Paul's objections, they managed to attain 2.17% of the vote in Montana. In between the 2008 election and now, we saw the rise of the Tea Party movement, a right libertarian and paleoconservative movement inspired by Ron Paul. While it mostly helped the Republican Party, the Libertarian and Constitution parties benefited slightly, with more like-minded individuals joining the political process. As such, they needed a candidate to appeal to these people. These candidates were Susan Ducey, making another run for the office, American radio talk show host Lori Roth, former football coach and Reform Party candidate Robbie Wells, Constitution VP candidate in 2008 Darrell Castle, who actually announced his candidacy a day before the delegates would have voted, and former U.S. Congressman from Virginia, Virgil Goode. Goode is primarily known for opposing Keith Ellison wanting to use the Koran to be inaugurated in the 110th Congress. Goode got a lot more media coverage than other Constitution Party candidates of the past, appearing on Stossel alongside Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party and Stuart Alexander of the Socialist Party USA, and 2 third-party debates with Johnson, Jill Stein of the Green Party, and Rocky Anderson of the Justice Party. One of them was even moderated by famous perennial candidate Ralph Nader. Goode expressed similarities with Gary Johnson by cutting government spending. Goode was only on the ballot in 26 states and eventually won 0.09% of the popular vote. The 2016 election was interesting due to both parties nominating the two most unpopular candidates in American history, and with Donald Trump having more protectionist and anti-immigration rhetoric than other Republicans, the Constitution Party felt like they could cash in on this with their candidate. Their 5 major candidates were congressional candidate Daniel Clyde Cummings, candidate for the Alaskan House of Representatives J.R. Myers, Pastor Scott Copeland, founder and national chairman of the 2012 and 2016 candidate of the Americans Party Tom Hoefling, and the 2008 vice presidential candidate Darrell. Castle won and selected university and administrator and candidate for the vice presidential nomination Scott Bradley. Castle is known for being a strict constitutionalist, advocated for the U.S. to remain non-interventionist, to defund Planned Parenthood, decriminalizing prostitution, gambling, and smoking and polygamy, and marijuana, and withdrawing from NATO, TPP, NAFTA, CAFTA/DR, GATT. Castle was more notable than most of the other Constitution Party candidates aside from Goode. Not only did Castle receive endorsements from Chuck Baldwin and radio host Glenn Beck, who would later endorse Evan McMullin, not only was he invited to a free and equal debate with Party of Socialism and Liberation candidate Gloria LaRiva and American Delta Party candidate Rocky De La Fuente, but his daughter, Joanna Castle Miller, also started a web series called Red, White, and Dad about her dad's run. Link in the description. Castle was on the ballot in 27 states and received 0.15% of the popular vote. And even though they had more votes than the Goode climber ticket, he only got 6th place due to the fact that Gary Johnson appealed more to Rockefeller and Libertarian Republicans, and McMullin appeared to the more neoconservative Never-Trumpers. Meanwhile, in Idaho, the state affiliate chose to endorse a ticket comprised of Scott Copeland for president and J.R. Myers for vice president, while the Castle and Bradley ticket was registered as an independent ticket. The Copeland-Myers ticket got 2,368 votes, and aside from Don Blankenship's run for office, we've reached the most recent development of the Constitution Party. So to all of you anti-trade, anti-gay, constitutional purists, I hope you get someplace in government, but I mean, based on my views, you're not in the highest authority in the land. Maybe a governorship. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And, as always, you can go check out my website for political endorsements and just a catalog of my episodes, etc. Or you can follow me on Twitter, follow me on Quora, Facebook, and you can, and if anybody wants to put me on a show or something, go ahead. Like a podcast, like DPP, like DFF.